I'm here with Jamie Mock, and she is a wonderful realtor in the Atlanta market. And we're talking about the NAR settlement changes. Those go into effect this Saturday, August 17th. And for us in a buyer brokerage state, which we've been doing buyer brokerage compensation for years, it's really not that different. But I do think for buyers and sellers, it feels like a different approach, and there may be some confusion. So we wanted to kind of share some thoughts on this with you today and see if it helps. So Jamie, what would you say to a buyer right now? What do you think buyers' biggest concern are?
I think there's just a lot of questions, and I think there's a lot of misguided information out there, and people aren't understanding what they're hearing. As you've said, we've been in Georgia, we've always worked with a buyer's brokerage. So this is not new to us. It's just being presented differently. So I think really and truly the biggest thing is that they need to make sure they're still calling a realtor. A lot of people think that, we don't need a realtor anymore, but you do. And I think that's the biggest important part of the puzzle is that you need to have an advocate there for you that can answer those questions and can guide you and can help you and really make sure that you're understanding the process and what you're getting into.
It's a lot to know, right? It's not just finding a house. It's understanding what the comps are in the market, what is going on in the market, right? How to navigate the 500 things after you go to contract even. On a listing, that listing agent represents the seller. So while a buyer can go in by themselves, right? It's not that you can't. That listing agent is then going to make you sign a customer relationship, or maybe you've heard of dual agency, right? Which means you represent both sides, which doesn't make sense to me, right? Because if I'm in a lawsuit, I'm not hiring the same
attorney
that's representing the plaintiff. So, so I think buyers maybe don't think about it in that, and it's just that, that listing agent can let me into the house. That listing agent, they have the paperwork, so I may not need an agent. I found this house, but what more does a buyer's agent do, right?
That's the biggest misconception is everybody's able to Google everything. They can search everything. So in their minds, they're saving themselves by taking the realtor out of the equation, but they're really not, because there's so much more, like you just said, that a realtor does on both sides of the transaction, from guiding you not just only in the right school districts, where you want to be for the right product type. There's just so much more than putting a sign in the yard or sending you a listing or showing up at the door. We guide you through an entire process, just to even think about how much goes into just a single transaction, before the deal, through the deal, and even long after the process. It's ongoing, and there's so much that a realtor that you need them for.
And I do think, Jamie, that's so important, because I know we've both been in the industry and licensed realtors for a really long time, and it's listening. It's listening to what that seller says. Sometimes people think that, that seller wants somebody who can close quickly. That's not always the case, right? Maybe they don't need to be where they're going tomorrow, but they do want to go ahead and have the house sold, but they need time. And then same thing on a buyer. Right? Listening to what you're looking for, because I know you go out and look at beautiful homes like the one we're in right now, and you sometimes lose sight of what you said you wanted and what was going to be the best thing for your family. So it's having that person that's got your back, that's bringing you back to what you said you needed and wanted, and kind of keeping the business side of it together, because so many emotions are involved when you're talking about your home, right? Where you're raising your kids, where you're living your life, where you work, live, and play. There's a lot of emotions, and that realtor that's helping you is keeping it business, right? Because it is a huge business transaction at the end of the day, and you don't want to go that alone many times. So what do you think as far as kind of how the things are shifting, where maybe that shared compensation is not across the board just going to be as evident up front now, right? Because it's not going to be in the MLS necessarily. It's not going to be marketed, right? Kind of what does a buyer need to think about when they're making an offer, considering that?
Well, again, I think that's where you need to lean on your realtor that's there to help and guide you with that, because when you're presenting an offer, all offers are going to be different. So you need to be able to look at the situation to where you were saying earlier and really understand what's going to set your offer apart. So the compensation, is it a factor? Yes, because there is a job that we do and a service that we're providing, but you need to be able to look at it as a whole and really be able to understand how to put that offer together to best present it, to make it stand out on your half too.
And, back kind of at the beginning of the market spike, right? 2021 especially, there were many houses that got 50 offers or more, right? And one of the things that I know savvy realtors were doing is saying, hey, buyer, you've got enough cash. Why don't you potentially offer to pay the compensation for not only me, but for the listing agent even, because that seller's looking at the best net to them, which as a seller, that makes sense. They want to leave with the most money, right, on their investment. And many times, the seller wants to make the most money, the buyer wants to pay the least money, and those two things somehow get to meet in the middle.
Right.
But, if it's a hot property, that was something that buyers were doing to win an offer.
And can definitely make your offer stand
That's
out.
no different than today, right?
Right.
You want your offer to stand out so that you win the house. And I think that's great advice. So getting good advice is so important. So call on Jamie, call on your savvy realtor. Not all realtors are the same. Not all doctors are the same. Not all car mechanics are the same, right? And because they maybe make their job look easy, doesn't mean that they haven't spent 10, 20 years perfecting that craft. And that's what you're paying for, right? You're paying for that savvy market knowledge, not just that they can help you get the contract today. Right. So consider that. And thank you for that input, Jamie. It's so important. And I appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. Have a great day.